Welcome to Better Equipped. I'm Cody Balch. I'll be your host today, and I have the most special guest possible. That of all the interviews and conversations I'll ever host, this healthy conversation is going to be my favorite because it is with my wife, Micah. Micah, welcome. We are on the same property, but I'm in the super shed, and you're in the house. And just so we can make this recording work a little bit better. So,
Yep.
This is my lovely wife, Micah. And
hello.
Thank you for agreeing to do this and have a healthy conversation. Today, we're going to be talking about intentionally discipling our children. How do we do that? What is our mindsets? But Micah, real quick, just tell people who you are and introduce our kids too, because we're talking about our children. Let them know who our kids are too.
Okay. My name is Micah. I happen to be Cody's wife.
Woohoo!
Yeah. The honor is mine. He's wonderful, but
that's very sweet of you. The honor's mine, by the way. People are like, get on with it. Get on with it.
I know. They're gonna be like, oh, stop. We have 4 kids. We have twins that are 10, JL and Ruth. And then we've got Esther, who is 6. And then we have Jude, who is 4.
Yep. 3 girls and a boy.
Ruth are in 4th grade. Mm-hmm. JL turned 4th, and Esther's in kindergarten. Jude's in preschool.
Yep.
So, yeah.
It's a fun, wild, exhausting time of life, isn't it?
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
It has been, it's been a circus. That's what we say.
Yeah. And we never planned on having 4 kids, but praise God that the Lord's will was done in spite of ourselves and surprised us with our 4th, which is Jude. And I think we're both really grateful for that, but we had our adjustment to that reality when we, found the news, and but it's been such a blessing. So we are a family of 6, and we still fit in a minivan, and but other than that, it's good. And so we're not brand new on this journey, are we, Micah? We're not the seasoned veterans kids are out of the house, but we're in the thick of it. But we're not brand new to it. And I hope that this conversation is really encouraging to you for anyone who wants to be intentional with their kids. But obviously, specifically, we're talking to Christians who have a desire or want to cultivate the desire and learn how to more intentionally disciple their children. What do we mean? Micah, what do you think we mean when we say, you and I know what we mean when we say disciple our children, but there might be people who are like, I don't even know what that means. Like, what does that actually even equate to? Just like definition wise.
Yeah, I mean, I think the simple definition is teaching verbally and modeling behavior of what it looks like to follow Christ is what I would say.
Beautiful.
And you and I know, and if you've been following Christ at all for any amount of time, you know that this is not a perfection kind of, Jesus is the perfect one. We are not, but that there's going to be times where we mess up and we fail and are in over our heads for sure. Yeah. But I think that it's attaining to that life, it's attaining to that example and trying, sometimes trying and sometimes just leaning on the Lord for that. But yeah.
That's a great definition and explanation. And if you're out there and you're saying, man, I either don't know where to start, or I'm just exhausted, or I don't know if I'm a disciple yet. I don't know if I've been discipled. How can I disciple my kids? You're not alone. There's most people, I think, unfortunately fit into that category. And we want to help be a part of changing that. We can't single-handedly fix it all, but even in this conversation, we want to invite you in right where you're at, right where you're starting. No judgment, no defeatedness. The Lord wants to take you right where you're at and say, all right, but we can take next steps from here. And so I hope you glean and are equipped with that today. Micah, when you think back on our journey as parents, particularly specifically in the context of discipling our kids, I think a lot of people think that happens later in life. When would you say is the right time to start intentionally discipling your children?
Day one. I know that sounds kind of weird.
Okay. So break it down for people. I agree with you, but what would day one look like? I mean, they're infants, depending if you're talking even pregnancy. I have some thoughts on that, but what do you think? Like, okay, day one, somebody's like, all right, what? I was thinking like 16, maybe 14, 13, puberty. You're saying day one, that might be a drastic difference than what a lot of people think. Why day one?
The only thing I can think of that would answer that is that, when I think of discipling, and you kind of already hit on this, but that this is kind of an overflow of really your own relationship. So, and again, this is sticky because there is grace, lots of it, for when that doesn't happen or when, you feel like you've wasted time. Mm-hmm. But I would say that for you and I, it was literally just an extension of what we were kind of already doing for ourselves. So it was, when they were babies or little, it was, singing to them or, reading a verse or two verses. And then when they got to, I don't know what age it was that we started like implementing kind of our nighttime routine with them where I can't hear you.
I muted myself because I had to clear my throat. I won't cut that out either. You just get to enjoy that. I said, I think about 6 months old, we kind of cleared the fog of like heavy duty, like nighttime feedings, changings. We'd kind of gotten our feet under us just a little bit and really started more intentional reading. And I remember us saying, whether we know for sure if they understand it or not, we want them to hear the words of God and let that pour over their hearts and minds. And just like they learn to talk by hearing other people talk, the word of God being written on their hearts even before they fully even understand what that means. But again, maybe they do more than you realize.
And I think that's true. Yeah. I think, and I remember my dad saying this when I was a baby, that he would read scripture to me. And, some people might think, well, they can't internalize anything. Yeah. But
I mean, like, why would we think that if everything else is learned that way? Like, why wouldn't we just wait till everybody's 13 to learn anything? If it's like, wow, they don't internalize anything anyways. It's like, no, that's how they learn. And
yeah, there's something to the rhythm of it, but it's also to like, it's faith that the Lord is really doing something, it's like, I don't know. This is a beautiful time, but like, I would say, for us, the intentionality did not come, I would say, until they were probably 18, probably till we moved to Powell, 18 months old. Cause we were just in a fog of like twins and keeping them alive. Sure. And then we were church planting at the same time, and we moved states, and we had to we were fundraising. We had a bazillion different things going on. So it was like the intentionality piece, I really don't think came until they were toddlers.
Well, and we were learning as new parents too. So like, we aren't perfect now, and we weren't perfect then. I think we learned, but some things we did right. And I only say this not as this is not a prideful gloating thing, and this is not a religious, like, I don't know. It's just, I'm going to say it. Basically, the twins, the 10-year-olds, they read over 2 chapters of the Bible every day now. And it's just, they have bandwidth. They can absorb it. It doesn't feel overwhelming to them. We don't have to hound them necessarily about it. But I think a lot of that attributes to because we've not just trained their taste buds, but also their hearts and their minds, their ears are at a place where they desire that, and they don't think of that as burdensome. They think of that as something and I think it's because of things like starting early on in just reading to them, and then later they learned how to read, and then they could read more. And that didn't just happen overnight. It's not like boom, it's never. When I was 10, I was not reading the Bible every day at all. I was not reading any chapters, let alone 2 chapters or more. And they're on the same Bible reading plan that you and I are on. So it's like we get to read that together.
I mean, they are, and you're right, they are doing it. I don't think they find it burdensome, but I do think there is still a significant training that it's a different level that they're stepping into right now. So they've not been reading 2 chapters of the Bible until recently. And we've been encouraging them that this is what we are doing. Mm-hmm. Do you want to join? Mm-hmm. And both of them have said yes, but like it's the wrestle of some nights they don't have that done. Right. And some nights it's an encouraging of like, we're asking like, okay, so like, where was the time spent? Mm-hmm. And it's not to read the Bible to check it off the list. That's important. That it is creating discipline. So stepping into something that may feel uncomfortable, that's going to have long-term gain. Okay. So we understand that from a physical training standpoint, like you're going to step into exercise and it sucks, but you're going to feel good and look good, later. So some of that is that. And some of it is like really connecting on your own, taking ownership of faith, at the appropriate times that this is, and we are encouraging that right now. We are not just right. We're not just saying you get to choose. We're kind of encouraging that. Like they're 10, they're not 16. So,
but they're not fighting. They're not fighting it either. I agree with you. But even for a lot of people listening, like they aren't at that point with Scripture themselves. Yeah. So I don't want to discourage people. I just want people to understand this is something that. When you start early, the earlier you start and intentionally. So the point of this part of it is the earlier you can begin. It's never too late to start. You can't go backwards and undo or redo. But the earlier you start, the better chance that it's going to be, and it's going to help keep you accountable as a parent. One thing I want to add, Micah, when you were talking about day one, back to day one is when you start discipling. I agree with you, and I think one thing I'd add that I know you are a big proponent of is we were praying for our children before they were born. We're praying specifically for God to do things that are far beyond us as parents and our ability, and working in their heart and mind. We're praying for their future spouse, that they will be a godly person who loves Jesus more than anything else in the whole world, so that they will be fully loved, so that they will experience someone who loves them with the love of God and loves Jesus. And we're praying those things way before they're ever in those seasons. And we're praying for our children as they navigate life and faith and all kinds of things. So prayer is also a huge foundational piece of discipleship.
I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
The prayer piece can start at any phase. And I think I think, some of the stuff that we're talking about, we have a gift in that we were aware enough at the time to kind of step into those things. But for parents who time has gone by, maybe their kids are in their teens, maybe their kids are in their adult years, and they feel like, again, I'm going to use this term, they've wasted time, that first of all, there's no condemnation. And second of all, there's always hope moving forward. And prayer can be I wouldn't say it's easy in some ways, but it is something that you can do that is probably the best thing that we can do, where we don't have the control in some ways to like I'm going to like sit down and have a Bible study with my kids. Or like some kids are not there. Or like there's been relational bridges burned. And that, especially if they're older and things have happened, in the relationship. But prayer is one of those things that you can go to God and tell him, honestly, I want this for my kids. I want it for me. I hope that you want it for yourself too. But I want this for my kids. One thing that I feel like I pray a lot as a young mom is, God, allow our kids to hear specifically what they need to hear from you and protect them from the things that are not from you. Because as you know, you and I have a dynamic in our home, and a lot of people do. These years are tough. They're high need. And our house is a loud environment all the time. It's loud. Our kids are loud. My sisters say like all of us are kind of deaf, which maybe that's true. But
totally true.
Maybe that's true. But it can easily feel like we're constantly kind of yelling, or constantly just in this high intensity. We're all redheads, y'all. So like, it's not it's not a very Zen atmosphere is what I would say. So, there are times where I have just asked the Lord, like, God, I don't feel like I can do this. And I need you to do it for me. I need you to do the filtering in their heart and in their minds. Also knowing too, that I am not perfect, and to capitalize on those moments in some ways when you understand that you failed.
Yeah. Kind of on that topic, if I say to you, Micah, you can't give your children anything that you don't have to give, that you can't give them something you don't have. When you think about that in terms of discipling your kids, how should parents be motivated personally in their own walk with Jesus? We've already talked about a little bit how it flows out of that, but how would you encourage, the parents out there to, as a part of the discipling of their kids, to prioritize their walk with Jesus? What is that? What should that sort of look like? I mean, the most important part of it first, and then maybe practically we'll break that down.
I think the 30,000 foot view of that is, it is vital to discipling your kids. We can't even really have the conversation. Maybe we should have started with this. We can't even really have the conversation about discipling your kids if you are not doing that yourself, if you are not investing intentionally in that. So because it literally does not compute here for you or here. So in your heart and your mind, I'm not doing this for myself. It feels like a hypocrisy in some ways, that I want this for my kids, but I'm really not willing to do it for me. And then I think your kids sniff that out. Kids are smart, and they're smart from day one. They really are. They're brilliant. They know how to get what they want when they want it. And some of that is developmentally as they're babies and they need things. How do they do that? They cry, to get your attention. They'll do anything to get your attention. And then, but the kids sniff out, if my mom asks me to be kind to my sister, is she kind to daddy? Is she kind to me? They sniff those things out. So I think, I really don't know that the discipling your kids conversation is even a valid conversation if you can't really start with yourself.
Sure. What would you say, Micah, about the importance of never discipling, throughout averaging out your life and parenting, never discipling your kids alone, meaning the people that are outside of the parental role, the other community of faith? I know that you talk with me a lot about the importance of that, and I agree. So share with people the importance of those outside non-parent relationships in terms of discipling your kids?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is something that we are just now starting to kind of wade into a little bit. It's not that the younger ones don't have relationships with adults, but they're still very much kids, and in that they're not interacting on a relational level with adults a lot. It's still very much like, this is what I need. Can you provide the need? They only see adults as authority figures, or they give, certain things. So Jael and Ruth are just starting to kind of get into that phase. And so I do believe as kids age, they have to have people outside of mom and dad to help them in faith. So it could be anything from, and again, these are trusted people. These are not people that you just, willy-nilly allow your children to have time
Right.
with. But I think people who are trusted, that your kids have walked some time with them, and your kids have seen the fruit of their lives, and that there is a trust relationship there, so that there's ears to hear, so that your kids have ears to hear when the time comes for there to be faith conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And some of that's just cultivating relationship, that there's relationship there. But I think it's important because kids have to be able to make faith their own. They have to be able to see that this is, yes, my mom and dad discipled me, taught me this certain thing, but as they age and grow, and the Lord does this in many different ways, to strip away some of those things that we grew up with in our home. And he uses a bunch of different things. He uses pain. He uses, and certainly uses other people. But I think that that's very important for kids to be like, oh, this is not just in my home. And this other person is following Jesus, and they may have a different viewpoint. And it's good.
Yeah.
Like, it's good.
Yeah. I think about both for the parents' side, like their discipleship journey, and for their kids. I would say you need the two main ingredients that then break down into the practical details, but you need the Word of God and the people of God. And I think for our discipleship journey as parents, we need the people of God. But then we got to understand for our kids that even on the days we feel okay, or whether we are or aren't, whether we just feel complacent or just we feel healthy, we've got to understand that we also have to be the champion to help connect them, not forcefully, not forcing relationships, but cultivating and shepherding and guiding them, giving them opportunities, giving other people opportunities to have space in their life. And like Micah, like you said, as they get older, that developmentally, as just a person, Christian or not, but then especially discipling, that becomes more and more important. I know for me, it was accentuated when my parents got a divorce, when I was in between my 8th grade and freshman year of high school. I was developmentally already in that phase, and spiritually, I needed outside people than my parents. I needed people outside of my mix, outside of my family dynamic, and being raised in, with that family, not my mother, my father not being in the same home. Those outside voices, it didn't diminish my parents' voice in my life, but I needed that all the more. And I think that's true whether you're divorced or not, or your parents were divorced or not. I think that's already developmentally true. But I know there's probably single parents listening, people who say, I don't have the husband-wife setting for my kids, and I can't even control what's in my ex's home teaching. They may believe something incredibly different than me. I think that, that's really, really tough. But you need community, and your kids need Christian community, healthy people of faith, that they're going to see life being lived out in conversations organically, and also teaching in different settings, because our lives really are the sermon. Our lives, the way we live our lives for our kids, really are the primary sermon, because we're with our kids more than anybody else, other than maybe school, and as they get older, work. So
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Would you
think about
say
that.
that, for you, were those outside during that time when you were kind of walking that through the divorce and needing other people, how pivotal to where you're at today would you say that those
Yeah.
outside relationships were?
Incredibly pivotal. And again, my parents still had a pivotal part to play as
Sure.
well. And my parents still tried to cling to faith, maybe more than ever. The divorce really kind of just forced them to face things that they
Hmm.
really needed to grapple with the Lord. And so that was a good example to me, even in the midst of the brokenness. But for me, absolutely, there are people that I know by name that played a critical role in pouring into me, pastorally caring for me, just listening, just having a listening ear, even if it didn't
Yeah.
make sense or is just emotionally
Yeah.
venting. I had people that were mostly not peers. Most of them were, well into their adult years that I felt like were safe places and who genuinely cared about me. That I didn't have to handle 100% of it with my parents.
Hmm.
And I could ask maybe a different layer of questions and feel safe about that
Yeah.
with them and to not feel emotionally too clouded. So yeah, for me, it was huge.
Yeah. I would say the same thing. And I didn't even walk through that, but I would say, from the time I was really a teenager, the people who discipled me outside of my parents have played pivotal roles in where my faith is and my knowledge of God is today.
Mhm.
And I always say this, and it goes in a bazillion different directions, but like, I feel like I would be dead in a gutter without the church. And it's true. I would be, a lot of times we hear the negative about the church, and I'm here to tell people the church is beautiful. It is messy.
Yeah.
It is not easy. It is
Right.
relational. It is not something you can walk away from or cancel or, you get your feelings hurt and you can you can, you have the freedom to do that, but it is just this beautiful, these people who you really can put weight down on. And I'm still having to learn that. I'm still
Sure.
having to, the layers of like what that lie is that you can't put weight down on people. I'm still trying to shed some of that, but certainly our kids have to have the church in that specific way. So
Yeah. And I agree 100%. And the last thing on this, and we'll ask another question here before we close, but um, I wouldn't have known most of those really pivotal people in my life if my parents hadn't cultivated that and introduced them to their own lives, been
sure.
open to those people in their lives,
Mm-hmm.
let alone me then getting access to even know who these people were of
Yep.
faith. And so there came a point where they weren't the ones facilitating all of that as time went on, but man, like that was the parents' job. It wasn't really my job as a kid. They had to shepherd that. And
Well, and that goes
and so
back
yeah,
to discipleship for the parent. And I don't want anybody to feel the weight, because this is hard. It's
Mhm.
hard, but there is a piece of that when you know better, you do better. So I need to be in this relationship for myself. And you already mentioned it. I forgot to mention it, but people of God, word of God, like
Yeah,
those two things. It's not a
right.
big giant list. It's two things. And if I can intentionally connect with even one person that I really trust, that I know is following and on this journey, um, that's going to be huge and help, but you have to, like you said, like your parents, without those connections that they had already created in their own walk, you wouldn't have had those.
Yeah,
So for
yeah,
those who are just lost and stuck, man, text Cody, text me. Like
yeah.
we will do it, or we will connect you with people
My phone
who
number is
are
five
doing
five
that.
five 5555. I'm kidding. All right. So what would you say, Micah, to the call? And I'm generalizing dramatically to make my point, but the culture that we live in, that is, my child will be a Division I athlete or a full ride scholarship to an Ivy League school, and I'm stigmatizing it for the purpose of that they'll move heaven and earth for their children.
That's a big question.
No expense spared, no sacrifice too great for them, for their children. But then when it comes to the things that we're talking about, and I'm pulling from what you said, it's hard. Oh, it's hard. It's spiritual warfare. This is a spiritual battle. Satan is fighting against you. He doesn't want you to do this for you or for your children. What would you speak into parents who have the mentality, I'll do anything for my kid, but when it comes to their eternal salvation and their spiritual health and development, they put it lower on the priority? How would you speak in a challenge and encourage? Just speak honestly. I mean, I think people need to hear some truth and love here. We love you. We want to share truth with you.
Yeah, that is tough. And I know that every parent feels that way. Every parent feels, I will move heaven and earth for my child. I don't care what it takes. You got a sick kid, you're going to move heaven and earth for your child. You don't care what it takes. You know, you got a kid who struggles with anxiety and they need certain helps. You're going to do that no matter what. I mean, my question would go back to, what is the fundamental need of a child? Is it to, and this is the way God's created humans, not just children, that fundamental need is to be loved, and I think, in this specific what we're talking about today, when you're parents, when you're 75 years old, 80 years old, time has passed, kids are grown, you've got grandkids, maybe great grandkids. Are you going to hope and wish that you would have poured more money and time into the kids' activities? What is the goal? What is the purpose? What is the point? And so I think this is where a lot of, where's your value? What are you teaching children? And again, like, I never want people to feel like I'm judging them for that. That is something that is a very personal call that parents make together or single parents make. But I think, man, we gotta really be honest about, like, why is there anxiety and depression? Why is there like this entitlement? Why is there a huge drug problem? Why is there a huge suicide problem? And this can go in a lot of different directions. We know that. We know the internet is real. We know social media is real. Bullying is real. All of it's real. What if we slowed down and gave kids our presence in and under the umbrella of faith, which would equip them for their entire lives, not just a season of their life, and prepare them for the crap that is coming for them. It is coming for them. It may happen when they're kids. It may happen when they're, in their teen years. But how do they deal with? Do they have any tools to deal with crisis, storms? So I think that I would caution parents to make decisions very carefully about what you spend your time investing in for the long run. And yeah, you can say, well, that's a very serious, and it is serious. You want to know why? Because I really fully believe, and you can ask any 100-year-old this. We've talked to 100-year-old people. We've talked to people in their 80s and their 90s, how fast this goes. Your life is a blip. You're going to get to your deathbed and be like, dang, that was fast. My kids are grown. I wish I would have fill in the blank. I think our hope is that we hopefully encourage and challenge you to get rid of that I wish, and obviously there's going to be mistakes made, but man, it would be great for you to get to the end of your life and think, I invested in what was important, what really was important. So it's not saying your kids can't play sports, not saying your kids can't play the piano, that your kid doesn't need a counseling session here and there, that your kid doesn't need, that's not what we're saying. What's the emphasis? What is the emphasis of what you're telling your kid. Here's where your value lies, and here are the tools to help you in life. Here is your maker. Who those are the types of things that are invaluable. They're just invaluable.
Yeah.
So
yeah. As parent, I appreciate that, Mike. I mean, I know that that's sometimes hard to hear for parents, but
it is hard to hear.
I've got to ask you, parents who are listening, what is your value? What's most important in this life? What do you want most for your kids? If and this is theoretical, but if you were able to ask God have one prayer for your child that you knew God would for sure answer, what would it be? And I believe that you can't make them know and love Jesus. You can't make them love Jesus. You can make them, make it in a way where they at least know who he is through your life, through your words, through your teaching, and through your values. And they get to choose that. But at least they know who they're choosing or rejecting. And what's your greatest prayer? For Micah and I, the greatest prayer is not that they're successful in sports or school, or even as important as like marriage is. And that's my second greatest prayer. I know for you too, Micah, but like, it's not even like having a healthy marriage. All of those things sort of are completely secondary or flow out of what's more important, which is, do they have the hope that anchors their life? Do they have a truth that anchors their life? Do they have a peace even in the midst of the storms that come when life doesn't go right, when people die or things go wrong or people don't treat them well, or people are telling them they're not enough, or all these lies from the enemy come in and all these attacks? Are they anchored to the truth and the hope of Jesus in their own life?
Yeah.
And that is the greatest possible thing that we can give our children, is the gift of faith in Jesus Christ. And so as we kind of wrap up here, I just want to encourage you to continue praying and thinking and dialoguing this conversation. And we want to encourage you, if you're not connected in a community of faith, a church body, we want you to know that this is a critical part for you and your kids. And find a church that loves Jesus and holds his word as truth, the Bible as truth, and teaches that. And hopefully you'll find a place that is filled with love and truth and grace for you along this journey, but companions to journey along with you, whether you're married or you're divorced or you're a single parent or whatever it might be. You're going to need people who I know would love to walk alongside you and encourage you in your discipleship journey as you then take ownership of you being the primary discipler that God says as a parent, you are the primary responsible for the primary discipleship of your children. And what a weighty responsibility, what an amazing opportunity and privilege that we have to be the ones who get to share life and faith with our kids. And so, Micah, do you have anything, burning on your heart that before we hop off here that you say, I really, really want to share this aspect? It could be on any topic within this kind of umbrella of discipling our kids. Anything that for this episode you want to make sure you share or encourage people with?
Yeah, I just think two things. That, first of all, you are on a journey with it. We're all on a journey with it. I feel like in 5 years, in 6 months, we could do this same conversation and we'll have new content, because that's how kids are.
Right.
And once a parent, always a parent. So, even with your adult kids, I'm sure that there are things that change and shift, and it's kind of a constant revolving door of seasons. And we feel that too, but that we're in this journey too, and there's grace for the journey, that there's starting places, but that there's grace for that. Secondly, I think as a parent personally, and this is just something from my personal journey with it, where I have come to in the past few years, and I'm early in it, and I'm not at the season where this will be required of me. But I think, gosh, like at the end of the day, regardless of what happens with my kids, and my kids are the Lord's, we are given them as gifts while we're on this earth, but they are God's. Mm-hmm. And my job is to return them to him, to restore that, to help that relationship be restored. But I also think too, at the end of the day, I want to deeply trust what he does with their journey. And I think more than anything, parenting is just this big, giant leap of faith. It's this big, giant trust fall into God. Like, are you going to trust me with these people that you love so deeply and you would move heaven and earth for? That's how I feel about you. That's how I feel about these kids. They are mine. But I think personally for me, I want to get to that point, where I am, if it takes a painful course for my child to come to a deeper understanding of the God who loves them so deeply, that I will trust that. And that is scary. That is very scary. But I think that really is, we can talk about discipleship, and I think that's important, and intentionality is important with our kids, but like internally for us, for our specific walk with God, are we trusting what he's doing with our most precious people? So that's just kind of one thing I wanted to share, is that's where I'm at. In 15 years, it'll be interesting to see if I'm still there, if I'm in like the pit of darkness. And you'll have to remind me of this.
I don't think it'll be easy, but I don't think you'll be in the pit of darkness. But well, listen, if you've been listening, I hope this has been encouraging and equipping for you. But I know it doesn't stop here. So feel free to reach out to us at betterequippedwithcody@gmail.com. You'll find us that way. You can go to betterequipped.net to find more resources on all kinds of topics to equip your discipleship journey. But again, you need people in your life tangibly. And so wherever you live, wherever you're listening, make sure you find people. Prioritize it as a top priority for you to grow in the Word of God with the people of God, so that you can be better equipped for all areas of life and faith that you need. Thank you again for joining us. Micah, thank you so much for helping contribute in such a meaningful way to this. And I think, don't you guys think she needs to come back on another episode? I think you'll be one of my top and favorite guests forever.
I will be honored. I love talking with you.
Well, we're so grateful for you, and hope that this has been encouraging and equipping in your journey of faith. We'll see you later.